Welcome, Captains, to another edition of the Tribble Timewarp. It is the 2nd of July, and Cryptic have fixed, at least partially, something I highlighted in my last Fleet Starbase video. They have either upped the draw distance on this map, or they've moved the various little sub-bases closer to the main starbase because you can now actually see them. And indeed they're marked on the minimap, which is a nice touch. As you can see, Starbase Valhalla is now at Phase 1 rather than Phase 0. So we have working lights, well, hey, a completed hull, and someone graffitied the UFP symbol onto the hull as well. Well, I suppose we can forgive a bit of enthusiasm. In other changes, we've moved on a bit with the Fleet Starbase advancement, so you can see that we're working through the second military tier. We've got several projects on the go, including stationing a tactical officer on the starbase. Now this is supposed to act as a Doff contact, and this mission gives us military fleet ship provisioning. Now bear in mind that in the fleet retrofit video we needed something called a commissioning directive to get the best fleet retrofits. Now it may be that that mission is to stock up on those, in which case that solves that mystery, or it may simply be to add in a number of the lesser retrofits available for purchase, which is going to cause quite a bit of guild politics if you have to get in line. One annoying little bug is here. If you have to contribute colonists or indeed data samples, you can select individuals, but if you attempt to control click or shift click and select multiples at the moment, it doesn't work. You have to go through each individual colonist or data sample, and when you've got to turn in 150 of the little sods, it's a good recipe for RSI. I can understand why I want control of which individual samples I'm turning over, but the ability to shift click or control click to select multiples, as per the usual Windows protocols, would be really, really handy. Let's see. What else? No real changes there on the news tab, but it wasn't broken to begin with. Uniforms is still blank. Now, again, as I said in an earlier video, I'm wondering if this is tied to the fact that we don't have the tailor up and running yet, but who knows. On to the interiors, and we'll take a little side trip first off. As you can see, your weapon can now be displayed glued to your back in best World of Warcraft style, and it teleports itself into your hands rather impressively. I'm assuming that's just because they haven't worked out the animations yet, but if they're going to have you holding the weapon right-handed and slinging it left-handed, then they're going to have to do some thinking about how to do it. Maybe switch the weapon over the other shoulder and cross-draw it. Fortunately, if you don't like it, on your paper doll you can toggle whether or not you display armour, weapons and kit in a much more convenient fashion. Transporter pads are now operational and you can beam straight to the sector. That change I don't like. They've closed the roof on the concourse. I quite liked having the star field available, honestly. That just feels like a bit of a cop-out. Counsellor is for some reason over in the operations department now. I don't know, they've always been medical, haven't they? Or at least science-based. And we have the first instance. Remember that this is on Tribble, it's unfinished, because they've got the sound fields in for the disco, still playing the 25th century's apparently only dance track. Who knows? Maybe I don't know, maybe they just had a really bad tour in the Klingon Empire and were never heard from again. Ladies and gentlemen, Fleet Dance Beats now playing Rura Pente for the rest of their natural lives. Let's move on. I still don't know what that area is going to be for. It would make sense to have it as a kind of mail and bank setup rather than just slinging the consoles around. None of this is yet functional, of course, because we're still relatively low on the Starbase tiers. The Officer of the Watch is now wearing the 900-day veteran uniform, which, it's not too bad, but yeah, part of me is thinking that perhaps they ought to be wearing Command Red, because the Jupiter uniform that they've given has this tendency to look like it's an operations specialty variant rather than command or science. However, that's just me being a complete and total absolute lore nerd, so feel free to ignore that at will. Yes, we know these consoles are in some very, very dodgy places. Cryptic have mentioned this in the patch notes. Interestingly, that little area has appeared on the minimap, so it looks like we're going to be able to go through that door at some point. It'll be interesting to see what kind of functionality we get. Possibly ship selection? Who knows? Anywho, let's see. Mailboxes are online and functioning because we now have the Tier 1 Starbase. And let's take a quick toddle down because somehow they sacked the civilian tailor, apparently being a seamstress. Not that kind, Discworld fans. Is now a recognised MOS within Starfleet. Who knows? Who knew? Apparently you learn something every day. Down to the tactical. So the tactical duty officer contact is now down here and is operational. Remember, this guy was just standing there before and we couldn't interact with him. Now we can. And I still hold to the view that the officer of the watch ought to be down here, because let's face it, this is more of a control room. Now at the moment, this is a straight copy and paste of the tactical duty officer contact you have on your bridge. If you go into the ready room and use the communications console, you'll get this guy. I really hope it's just a placeholder. If Cryptic are just going to copy and paste functionality that we can get to on pretty much 30 seconds notice, then it defeats the point of investing the resources and the time into this guy in the first place, because there will be no point. Literally, no point. I mean, why do this if I can get to him through my bridge and can do so even quicker than I can by coming down here? Oh yeah, and ship selection is in here for some reason that I do not fully understand. Again, this may just be placeholder. I've no problem with making things like crafting and mail and bank access more accessible, because at the moment you have to go to a couple of very specific places in the game world to get to those for the most part. But if it's just going to be replicating functions that I already have very convenient access to, then not only do I not see the point, but I have to question whether it will be worth any fleet actually investing the time and resources into that mission. That was, of course, a little ready room for the Officer of the Watch, if he ever comes down here, and it's one of several areas that have not quite been integrated into the map yet. As a reminder, this is Tribble, it is still very much beta, and here's another indication that the map still needs some work. Listen to the ambient audio. Bearing in mind that the sound engine is taking the camera position as its sound source, there's very clearly some work that needs to be done. Either that or there's just really, really good soundproofing on turbo lifts, one or the other. Another area that isn't quite done yet, and will make this the final stop of this video, is a not quite hidden little engineering lab that's off the deck here. There is an engineering officer off to the left as we came in through the door. This is all just scenery at the moment, but it could turn into something interesting and functional. In the meantime, however, gentlemen, I must ask you to remove your hats, for according to the map, we are standing in Westminster Abbey. And we'll see next time if anyone else actually gets that reference. Farewell!